All right, guys, we are going to go through the wave demo video. So essentially, I just want to give an introduction and maybe a conclusion after the video, but these go along with your notes. So our first video is called How Old Are Your Ears? So this talks about frequency primarily, and it's kind of an interesting hearing test. So when I hit play, it's going to kind of give you a quick intro, and then it's going to play a series of kind of really awful sounds. And what I want you to think about is, when do you stop hearing the sound? And so that kind of judges any damage you've done to your ears and kind of tells us how old, because we think of hearing loss as an age thing. How much hearing loss have you experienced?
As we grow older, we often lose the extreme ends of our hearing spectrum. So, how many of the following sounds can you hear? How old are your ears? Okay, if you can hear 8,000 hertz, you're both alive and not hearing impaired. But let's keep raising the frequency.
So, for example, I don't hear this sound, but I heard the other ones. So, can you still hear it?
How high could you hear? If you could hear all of those frequencies, you're probably under 20 years old, but that won't last forever. Unlike other organs such as the liver or skin, the inner ear does not have the capacity to regenerate. In your ear, there are thousands of tiny nerve cells called hair cells. These are responsible for picking up different frequencies and sending the signal to the brain where it's processed. But as you age, the continual exposure to noise and loud sounds can break, bend, and destroy these cells. So why do the high frequencies go first? It turns out that the hairs tuned to high pitches are the first to encounter sound waves. As a result, they experience more stress and tend to degenerate earlier, which is why the older you are, the harder it is to hear high pitches.
And
Got a
this
burning question you want answered? Ask it in the comments or on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe for more weekly science videos.
And this is a really interesting phenomenon because we always joke about old men not being able to hear their wives, but women speak at a higher frequency. So when hearing loss or damage to those cells occurs on those high frequency cells first, it is in fact completely true that they lose the ability to hear women before they would men who speak at a lower frequency. Some other things to consider are the fact that we put our AirPods in our ears. So 20 years ago, headphones were over the ear. And so the sound was just physically further away. But when we put AirPods in an effort to get clearer sound or
As we grow older, we often lose the extreme end.
to be able to we hear it clear, block out noise, we're in fact actually just pushing those waves closer, so potentially causing more damage. So I would guess that most of you don't hear that last sound, even though all of you are under 20. So this video, I think I put these out of order. Well, it's okay. This is called a Rubens tube. So this is an example of both standing waves and constructive and destructive interference. So the Rubens tube is a long metal tube that they fill with propane and then light on fire.
Phil, what's going on here? Okay, what we've got here is a metal pipe with a whole lot of holes in it. We're pumping gas through it, and we've lit it up, as you can see.
So I like this video because you can clearly see, and then you send sound through.
A whole bunch of little flames burning gas. And this is all very pretty, but what does it have to do with science? Just you wait.
So he's going to play some tones, some single frequencies. And you can see it create a particular pattern. Now that sound isn't pretty, so what we're going to look at is what this looks like musically. Oh goodness, I'm all out of order. Let me back out. All right, so we'll go straight to the other. So this is the same thing, but played to music. So keep in mind that music involves multiple instruments, multiple voices, and therefore multiple waves. So what you're seeing is the overlap of those waves that creates this musical pattern in the fire. The bigger the flame, the more constructive the interference, and the smaller the wave, the more destructive. And now we get into a classical piece, which is just the piano. So instead of having a guitar and the drums and a voice, you just have a single instrument. And then lastly, an opera. And we can see that it's so high in amplitude that the flames actually jump. All right, so let's go back into some standing waves. So first is standing waves in a tank, which is really cool. So this is if you were a kid in the bathtub, right, and you were pushing the water back and forth, so the waves overlap on each other. It's not like a wave pool. What I want you to look at, you can kind of see it in this still frame, but look at the edges where you can see the water. So the upper piece, this is the top of the wave, and then down here is the bottom. And so we have antinodes and nodes, and you'll start to see them form once the wave gets moving. So we have a frequency of 0.6 hertz, and the amplitude is 4 inches. So it's going to start here at the top of our screen, and you'll start to see the waves form, and then all of a sudden you should start to kind of see this crazy, almost like a mind's eye trick. So you can see the waves starting to go. They're moving down the tube. And now they're hitting this wall and then going back. And if you kind of look at the reflections, it should almost look like it's flip-flopping, just up and down and up and down. So that's a standing wave in water. That's what a guitar string essentially is doing, which we'll see in the next video. Only this is being shot through a liquid. And you can kind of see, again, the nodes and the antinodes back and forth. And it's kind of in the same relative spots every time. So now we have guitar strings. So I'm going to kind of look at this before we hit play. But one thing to notice is, one, there are two different materials. Here we have the thicker wires and then the nylon strings here. This is our thinnest. This is our thickest. So this is the high frequency end on the left and the low frequency end on the right. And you'll see that as they play songs. All right, we're going to hit one last video before I'm going to pause. Actually, we'll stop here. So this will be demo video 1. I'll post a second video that goes over Doppler effect and resonance.